friend of mine took her car in for an oil change and walked out with a $1,400 estimate. She had no idea what was urgent, what could wait, or whether the car was even safe to drive home. She just paid it. That moment stuck with me, and it's exactly why understanding what mechanics check first, and why, is something every driver needs to know. There's a real pecking order tied directly to your safety, and your owner's manual is part of it. Once you see it, the whole repair process starts making sense. Did you know mechanics aren't just randomly picking what to fix first? There's an actual hierarchy they follow, and it starts with one category above everything else. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Picture this. You bring your car in because of a rattling noise under the hood. It's annoying, but it's not scary. You're expecting someone to poke around, find the source, and give you a number. But the mechanic comes back talking about your steering rack instead. That feels like a bait and switch, right? Like they ignored what you came in for and found something more expensive to sell you on. Here's the thing though. That's not upselling. That's the safety first pecking order in action, and mechanics follow it because of liability, not because they're blowing off your concern. Think of it like a hospital triage system. A broken finger doesn't get treated before internal bleeding, no matter who walked in first. The broken finger hurts, it's real, and it needs attention. But it's not going to kill you in the next 10 minutes. Your squeaky belt is the broken finger. A loose steering rack is the internal bleeding. The belt can wait. The steering rack cannot. Mechanics are trained, and in many cases legally required, to flag anything that puts you, your passengers, or other drivers at immediate risk. Brakes, steering, suspension, tires. Those 4 categories sit at the very top of the list, every single time. It doesn't matter what you came in for. If something in those 4 areas shows a problem, that gets surfaced first. So when your mechanic skips your belt noise and starts talking about steering components, they're not changing the subject. They're telling you the car has a problem that could cause you to lose control at 60 miles an hour. That's not a detour. That's the whole point of the inspection. Here's the kicker. If they fixed the belt and sent you home without mentioning the steering rack, and something went wrong on the highway, that shop is exposed. We're talking lawsuits, loss of license, real consequences. So their incentive to tell you about safety issues first isn't just professional habit. It's tied directly to their liability, and that's why it's consistent across basically every legitimate shop you'll ever walk into. This is also why the conversation at the start of a shop visit matters more than most people realize. A good mechanic isn't just diagnosing your car. They're triaging it. Every finding gets sorted into one of 2 buckets: immediate danger or fix it next month. And that sorting happens before they even write up the estimate. So the estimate you get isn't random. It reflects a ranking system that was already applied before the paper hit the counter. You won't believe how often people push back on that first conversation because they only want to talk about the specific thing they noticed. And look, your concern is valid. But if the mechanic is steering you toward brakes or suspension instead, there's a reason, and that reason has teeth. The one thing mechanics check first isn't a specific part. It's your safety systems as a whole. Brakes, steering, suspension, tires. That's the category that overrides everything else on your list every single time. And that hierarchy doesn't change based on what you came in for, what your budget is, or how minor your original complaint seemed. Here's something most people don't realize. 2 cars with the exact same symptom can get completely different repair recommendations, and your maintenance history is the reason why. Say 2 cars both come in with soft brake pedals. One has records showing the brake fluid was flushed 18 months ago. The other has no records at all, and the owner has no idea when it was last done. The mechanic's response to those 2 cars is going to be different, and not by a small margin. The first car gets a targeted diagnosis because there's a known starting point. The second car gets a much wider inspection because there's no baseline to work from. Without maintenance records, a mechanic has to assume the worst-case scenario. Because if they assume everything's fine and it isn't, that's a safety problem. And we already know where safety problems sit in the pecking order. So missing records actually push more items into the immediate danger column, not fewer. You end up with a longer estimate not because the mechanic is being aggressive, but because every unknown gap has to be treated like a potential problem until it's ruled out. Your owner's manual sets the baseline here. It lays out service intervals, the 30, 60, and 90,000-mile checkpoints. And those intervals tell a mechanic what should have been done by now. If your car is at 75,000 miles and there's no record of a brake inspection at 60,000, that gap becomes a red flag. Not because something is definitely wrong, but because no one can say something is definitely right. So when a mechanic asks for your service history, they're not making small talk. They're cross-referencing your current mileage against what the manufacturer says should have happened by now, and anything overdue automatically moves up the priority list. That's a direct connection between a piece of paper in your glove box and how urgent your estimate looks. This is also how they separate Fix It Today from Fix It Next Month. A worn cabin air filter that's 2 intervals overdue is annoying, but it's not going to put you in a ditch. Brake pads that are past their service window and showing metal-on-metal contact. That's a completely different conversation. Same logic as the triage system, just applied through the lens of what your records say versus what your mileage says should have happened. You won't believe how many people hand over a car with 0 records and then get frustrated when the estimate is long. The mechanic isn't padding the bill. They're covering every gap in the timeline because they have no other way to know what's been done. Every unknown is a liability, and liability gets treated like a safety issue every single time. The practical move is straightforward. Keep a folder, physical or digital, with every oil change receipt, every service record, every inspection sticker. That paper trail gives your mechanic real context, and context shrinks the estimate by pulling items out of the unknown column and putting them somewhere definite. Known and done. Known and overdue. Those are manageable categories. Unknown is the expensive one. Your maintenance records don't just track what's been done. They actively shape what gets flagged as urgent on your next visit. The more complete your history, the more precise the triage. But even with the hierarchy locked in and a full service folder in hand, there's one move most drivers skip entirely when a mechanic flags a safety issue, and it's the one that could save you from paying for something you don't actually need. So next time you're in that waiting room staring at an estimate, ask one direct question. Is this car safe to drive today? Then ask the mechanic to show you the actual evidence. The worn pad, the leaking line, whatever it is. Don't just take the verbal answer. Make them show you, because a good mechanic will every time. Don't forget to subscribe, because there's a whole conversation coming about what shops are legally required to disclose before they start any work. The pecking order is real, the liability is real, and stick around. We're just getting into the stuff most drivers never hear about.